stars of animation are shining. It's time to stay tuned. And now, here's your host, Phil Machi.
Welcome back, Tuners. As always, we're here to uncover the behind-the-scenes stories of the animation industry. Tonight's special guest is Joe Rothenberg. An award-winning filmmaker and animator, Joe is the creator of two Nickelodeon-affiliated productions, Sticky the Stick and Gumwad Island. He is an alumnus of the University of Southern California and has gone on to create dozens of animated commercial productions. Joe Rothenberg is ready to share the secrets behind Gumwad Island, including its protagonists, Oyster Maid and Water Melvin, in just a few moments. But first, this.
Look, Oyster Maid! There it is! The real grand old Gumwad Island Library! This is amazing! Our heroes!
Joe Rothenberg, welcome to Stay Tuned.
Thank you, Phil. I'm very happy to be here.
Hey, we've been trying to make this happen for a long time now, haven't we?
Yeah, I feel like we've recorded several podcasts without any microphone on.
So, Joe, you are my very first guest that I get to have in person, which is really exciting for me because so far every interview I've conducted has been over some sort of video conference or phone call, and you are an independent animator who lives in Austin, Texas, right?
That's right. That's me.
And you did that by choice. You didn't want to.
It was not forced.
You didn't want to live in LA or.
I liked LA. I was out there for school, and then I stayed out in Burbank for a few years.
Oh, great.
And it was great. I think the tipping point was working with Nickelodeon, and which was 7 minutes away from where I lived, but working with the New York department. So I was still on phone calls with them anyway. And I was like, why am I living here where it's very expensive? You know, my family is in Austin.
Oh, awesome. So you wanted to be closer to family and live somewhere less expensive. And why was Austin showing up on the list besides that?
Well, it's like right now there's just a lot going on in Austin, right? Like that's no secret. Like everybody
like this
knows.
show.
Yeah, the Stay Tuned is drawing in multitudes.
Oh, man.
The staff that you're supporting.
Cast of thousands. But yeah, okay, so Austin was showing up as a hotbed for activity.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to get my own place, and that was a lot more feasible in Austin than LA.
Although that is quickly starting to change.
It feels like we're kind of like turning into
mini LA.
Yeah, mini LA, and like a lot of that is like actually people from LA moving here, and it's changing.
The landscape is changing.
Rapidly. Yeah.
Yeah. You already had some ties to Nickelodeon.
Right.
Is that how your original concept of Oyster Maid came to be, or was it already happening when you were in LA and you just came here to live?
That was all done when I was in Burbank. So we kind of wrapped that, and then after that I was thinking, okay, I obviously don't have to be here to do what I'm doing.
Oh, that's interesting, because that's quite the opposite of what people tend to say, is we go where the action is.
Right. Well, and you know, what I was doing, what I am doing is not working for a studio, you know, as an employee or anything. It's all been contract work. So
okay.
As an independent contractor, I was like, okay, well, I'm just having phone calls with people anyway. I could fly in if I need to, but
sure.
I think there is some truth to if you want to work at the studios, there's not as many like opportunities to do that remotely.
Would you rather work for the studio, or do you like being an independent contractor?
I really like being independent. I've been an independent freelancer for close to a decade now. But I'm at a point now where I'm thinking of the human aspects of life. Like being around other people.
As a robot, I have to say I'm vehemently against thinking about humanity. I like to think about robot life personally.
I can see right through you, Phil. I can see the bolts.
I know. The gears are working and the hamster fell off the wheel.
You probably know what I mean as someone who has worked for large corporations and gone out, stricken out on your own.
Yeah.
When you're on your own, you have to be very active in keeping yourself social and out there. You can become a hermit so fast.
Oh, I've gotten the space madness.
Yeah.
It's absolutely happened to me.
Right.
I've had cabin fever.
That's a great way to put it, though.
Oh, yes.
Because, you can end up eating spaceman food, frozen dinners and things, and just
that's very true.
You're only talking to people through microphones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Oyster Maid, what was the impetus of you wanting to make that character? And I mean, because it's such a. I remember when I saw the cartoon, I was just like, what? It almost looks like someone took a dartboard of concepts and there were mermaids, but oysters, that's what
yeah. Island in a bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short is called Gumwad Island. We ended up naming it after the location.
Gumwad Island.
Island.
That's the name of the cartoon.
That's the name of the cartoon. I think in part because Oyster Maid, as I realized, is such a weird word that people think Oyster Man.
Because Gumwad is completely
Gumwad
normal.
is better.
Yeah.
At least that's a word you'll find in the dictionary.
Gumwad, see Oyster Maid.
There's this island that formed because someone spat out a wad of gum into a bottle and threw it into the ocean, and all this flotsam and jetsam went into the bottle, and it's there's something with the bottle that's magic. Or whatever.
Okay.
And stuff that goes in the bottle changes size. The island has trees and coconuts and sand and stuff, but it also has giant bits of trash, and there might be a beautiful waterfall pond, but it's actually inside a bucket if you look carefully and things. That was the idea I had was everything looks like natural formation, but if you look harder, you'll see that there's pencils in with the trees and stuff like that.
But none of that got explained in the short that was released.
No, there was so little time. I wanted to do maybe a musical intro or something and explain that. It was going to be this big old animated thing where you watched everything get sucked into the bottle, and then there's there's a tribe of tiny elephants on the island that we didn't get to and stuff. A lot of stuff, and there's a lot with scale. And so that way, I thought everything could be kind of fun and different, in a very simple way. So and then how we got to that was a totally different journey.
Okay.
I have to go back to the very beginning of my relationship with Nickelodeon. Okay. And forgive me, by the way, so in my mind, some words are just mixed up. So sometimes I say Nintendo or Nickelodeon. They me.
Back when I worked for Nintendo.
I felt my brain almost doing that.
You hear you walk in and it's woohoo! Let's go!
Yeah, Mario runs Nintendo.
Right, yeah. Mario runs Nickelodeon. And you're what's happening in this place? Why is there an Italian plumber in charge of an animation studio? I don't understand this.
Anyway, I'll try to finish
back
this
when you
thought.
started, yes.
So where this started was I had pitched to Frederator. Someone there who liked my pitch went on to work at Nickelodeon and kind of remembered me and invited me to pitch there. So I was pitching stuff to Nickelodeon. None of it was really getting by. We were having a lot of fun in the pitch meetings and things, but there's nothing was quite right. And then I released a game on the App Store called Nerdy Workout.
No, a game that you programmed.
Yes.
And made the artwork.
Yes.
You did all
I
of
made the game.
That's huge because games usually are a collaborative effort.
Yeah, well, it gets better, is question mark. I made this game to test and see if I could do it because a client was interested in seeing if I could make a game. So I made this as a test game in a week. And it was a week from conception to release.
But it wasn't a week conception. Sorry.
I made this game on a lark. It got featured on the App Store. Totally random. I haven't been able to recapture this magic since in future games. But so that caught Nickelodeon's attention, but it was their interactive division. And so it's they were okay, so we've got this animator kid who also makes games. It's kind of what we want to do. We want to do something multimedia. So that division reached out to me and they're do a 5-pitch deal with us and we'll pick one of those and we'll develop it. And they were give us a plate of things a buffet of things to
Right.
choose from.
A smorgasbord.
A smorgasbord.
Yeah.
We'll curate that and help you develop that down to something that we want. And the goal at that time was a pitch that would have an interactive portion. So I was supposed to pitch how these would turn into games as well.
But they didn't give you any, they didn't say like, we're looking for a buddy cop series or we want to have a robot fighting show or...
Not strictly.
Okay.
I think the way it was when I was working with them and you know, with the people I was working with and the circumstances I was working with, you know, so I don't think this is universal by any means, but they were a mix of hands-on and hands-off, where they didn't really want to direct me too much because I think they didn't want to limit me.
Oh.
But they were, I think, trying to push it toward a vision or like something that felt Nickelodeon.
Did they give you parameters of what they felt like Nickelodeon represented?
Well, we knew that the demographic was chiefly like 6 to 11-year-old boys. Their experience is like, it's more difficult to get girls of that age to watch cartoons. They try it a lot. But it seems like it's a different thing. So I didn't get the impression that Nickelodeon is not trying to appeal to girls. And I think they do have shows that do, but that they have a tougher time of it. It ended up that they had picked this mermaid idea. And they asked me if I wanted to change it to a boy character to make it appeal more to boys. And it's like, it's already weird enough that it's an oyster maid. We don't need to confuse
Make it a merman.
Further. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Oyster Man, I don't know.
Oyster Man sounds like a superhero.
Right. Yeah, it's like
not a very
like
good
Powdered Toast
superhero.
Man
Yeah, Powdered Toast Man. I don't know what that reference is. No, I'm just kidding.
They weren't really going for anything in particular, but the one thing they liked, there was a pitch I was doing called Fresh-tastic Farms about a farm of genetically modified fruits and vegetables who were like,
of course,
sentient and like they were running the place, but they weren't quite aware that the non-sentient fruits and vegetables that were their relatives but not sentient that they were sending out were going to get eaten. It was really weird. I don't know why I was like trying to go that dark.
I can't imagine why that didn't get picked up.
But it had a lot of fun characters that I liked with names like Straw Becky was a strawberry and Water Melvin.
Oh, so they
ended up as a...
So they pulled two of your concepts and said, can you combine these?
Well, I had just drawn on a sticky note a banana maid. It was a banana maid. A mermaid. In a banana peel.
Inside of a banana peel.
And it was going to be fun because she could close up the banana peel and open it. She had a little banana on her head and like... Oh. It was just a doodle. It wasn't even a character or anything.
It kind of reminds me of Strawberry Shortcake.
Oh, yeah. The old... It was like had a doll line or something with it. Okay,
but all the characters were like... A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were female, and they all had something to do with a food. Mm-hmm. And then the toy line, you would like you could scratch and sniff, so like she would smell like strawberries, or
smell like a banana.
She would smell like a banana. No, I'm sure that would be a thing.
Yeah, Oyster Maid could smell like an oyster.
Oyster Maid could smell like the sea, and no one would buy it.
Salt.
Oh yeah, that's gross. That's the reason why
Watermelon's the better scratch.
Yeah. Why is no one buying our ocean scented products? I can't imagine why.
Anyway,
that's
so
gross.
it was Banana Maid, and they're like, we love this character, but we already have a banana on another show, and I was frustrated because it was like the one thing you picked was Banana Maid, and now and you're like, don't make her a banana. Like, what am I going to do?
We like this character here. We want you, however, to change everything about her.
Right, make her a boy.
Make her a boy. Get rid of the banana. So, what do you like about her exactly?
Right.
You like the fact that she lives in the ocean. We're back to the back to the ocean theme, man.
Right, which always has made the show feel a little bit derivative of SpongeBob.
I was just going to say that.
Which was not really where I was coming from at all.
Right.
Like, but it is where it kind of ended up. And I love SpongeBob. Like, so that was going to be an influence no matter what.
Sure.
That's one of my favorite shows. You know, growing up, that was the show I looked forward to every weekend. And I was racking my brains, and I tried everything. I tried like Lobster Maid and Hammer Maid, anything that sounded like an intentional.
Lobster Maid doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, she has lobster claws. Like there wasn't that much. And Hammer Maid, I don't even remember what that was. Like I tried everything.
And it sounds like someone who's a reject from Home Depot.
like their failed mascot.
Yeah.
Hammer.
Or like if you're in one of these aisles and they're like, I really need some help with this. Quick, call Hammer Maid. She can help you.
Hammer Maid.
She's talking to Sawboy. No.
Yeah, they have a whole like McDonald's-esque slew of
You're like, can I just get some help from a person that works here?
The hammer burglar. They're just all hammers.
That's weird.
I couldn't think of any other.
Like drill sergeant.
Hey, that's I don't like that.
Yeah, it's awful. I'm pretty sure I've seen that somewhere else.
So finally, like, Oyster Maid seemed like it had some potential because oysters have stuff you can do. Like, we could have her retract into her oyster shell and, like, I don't know, pearls or something.
That's about it, dude.
Yeah. And then I liked this idea that she was a mermaid who acted as if she were underwater, but she's not. She's like on land, but she hovers everywhere as if she were underwater. So I just like, that's cool. I don't need to explain that.
To go back to SpongeBob, you've got that whole thing like with Sandy, where she's underwater, but she has this little little safety bubble. And so the bottle that they live in is like a bubble underwater.
Right. I think they do a little better job on SpongeBob of making that make some bit of sense.
Well, they've had a staff and and over a decade worth of time to hammer that out. To hammer made that out. See what I did there? I just tied it back into your show.
Yeah, that's a callback.
It is. That right there. That right there's a callback, see? More with Joe Rothenberg after this. We're back with Joe Rothenberg talking about the secret origins of Gumwad Island.
Finally, like, the most interesting idea was, like, to take the idea of a ship in a bottle, but make it a whole island in a bottle. And then I was like, let's just put it at sea so it can be in water. And then maybe there could be conditions of that change the island. Like, they float toward something glacial, and now you can have, like, a snow themed.
This is just a real collaborative process. Like, the idea,
it was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, the idea doesn't really keep a lot of its original integrity by the time it goes through the machine. That's from what I'm hearing.
In my experience, I think there's a lot of shows that don't have that happen. And keep in mind, this didn't come from like my like spark from above idea that I brought to them on a silver platter. This was them coming to me saying, pitch us some stuff, we'll curate it down. And again, the intent was to experiment with something that could have a strong interactive presence. And at this time, we were still trying to... I was racking my brain for, like, how do you make this a meaningful interactive experience?
Yeah. A mermaid who lives in an oyster in a bottle, how did that read as interactivity to them?
I think we were all trying to find something that we didn't know what it was, you know, like...
Yeah.
So, and I don't blame them for any lack of vision or anything. I think they were trying to experiment, and I was too, and, like, I think for me what made it difficult was they really wanted something that would be an almost Minecraft-like playground for kids.
Okay.
And that's not really what I do. Like, Nerdy Workout was an arcade game, and it's silly and fun, and I think they thought it was very Nickelodeon because, like, you're working out and these monsters come by and try to eat your arms off, and then if one arm gets eaten off, you can still work out with the other arm and try to get as many points as you can until that one gets eaten. You know, it's like silly. It's like... Yeah. And then I made another game called Nobody Said It Was Easy that was it was another arcade game. I like games that, like, find a point of tension and then, like, everything revolves around that.
Yes.
So that's not really, like, this creative world-building experience.
So they didn't really... It sounds like they didn't have a grasp on what you do before they tasked you with this task.
I think so. At that time, that was around... I guess, like 2013, 2014, when indie games were still like this massive cultural thing.
Sure.
And this conversation was on everyone's mind of, like, how do you make games more narrative focused? And I think that games have made ventures into various ways that they can have more meaningful stories since then. That's kind of been figured out.
From concept, from a pitch, to storyboard, to then going into production, which I assume went overseas for work. Maybe.
No, it didn't.
It was all in house?
I animated a lot of it myself with a lot of... I was living in a house of animators at the time.
That sounds like a Big Brother knockoff.
Like...
The Big Brother,
yeah, we should have been filming that. Oh, we totally should.
Right?
Yeah. It was just my friends and me, like, animating this thing, and it was really fun and probably harder than I was expecting to get it all pulled together. And I did the thing I usually do where I made it too long. So they wanted like a 2 to 3 minute short. Mine's 5 minutes.
Oh.
And I think it really did need to be cut down more, but I didn't know how to do that at the time. Like, as I was still learning. I think this shows that they have a lot of leeway when you're making these things. Because, like, they were like, we really don't want it to be that long, but they didn't say you can't make it that long.
Okay, so it was a preference.
Right. Almost everything was that way. Like, it felt like the creativity was still up to me, and they gave me a lot of trust, even though I was like very green. But if they had thoughts about how it should go, they would voice that.
So if you were really green, what was your foot in the door? How did you get to be the guy that gets to pitch an idea, that gets to become a cartoon?
That's a good question. I think they like young talent. I was right out of school. And I had done a pretty ambitious senior film, the short Ladies' Night, it was like a musical short. And it was like 9 minutes long. I animated it all myself in like really 4 or 5 months was most of it. And I really wanted to do like a musical. It has very deliberately an unnecessary tap dance number in the middle that has nothing to do with the plot. And like,
that's the best kind of tap dance number there is.
Right. It's got to be unnecessary.
Sure.
So I was doing everything I wanted to do in that. And so I think that was like, okay, this guy can make something. He can finish it and he can polish it. And then I think it was the game that was like, okay, and there's this other component to this person that gives him something kind of unique. Because up until the game came out, I was pitching stuff, but there wasn't really anything particular. I wasn't like story savvy enough to pitch something that was really as defined as they needed it to be. The underpinnings of what kinds of stories are going to happen and like how is the audience going to relate to this in a way that makes them want to come back episode after episode.
Okay.
That was the part that they were kind of teaching me when I was interacting with them, but I didn't really know yet.
It's very interesting to see where things start, where the trail starts. I'm fascinated by that. So then once the short got made, you got produced in-house in the United States.
All American.
All American animators, which is great.
Got to work with great voice actors like John DiMaggio.
Oh, okay, great.
And even ones that we didn't choose to work with for the specific roles. It was amazing. I got to see the Nickelodeon casting process, and it's like a lineup of amazing people whose voices I've heard all my life just coming in the door, trying out, nailing the lines on the first take, and then leaving, and you're like left with this choice.
Oh, wow. And so you had Nickelodeon at your disposal to help that part become a reality.
That was the one time where it mattered that I was in Burbank, because I got to go to the casting sessions and see the amazing casting director they had there.
Wow.
And this process. And
that's great.
Yeah.
So then the show aired, or then the show got sat on for a while? How'd that go?
It was sat on for a little bit. I think they're trying to figure out what to do with it because, the original plan of releasing it as this interactive experience kind of crumbled because we just didn't know what to do. So we ended up just making the short. And, Facebook launched their video platform. And so Nickelodeon started using that as a great way to get them out there. So it's officially released as a Nickelodeon animated short, but that's like a specific program that this wasn't originally part of.
Okay.
But that's where it ended up being released.
And did they, and this is getting into the weeds, which I love doing, did they buy the characters from you? Did you sign a contract that said, like, I no longer own Oyster Maid, or I never owned Oyster Maid ever, I just was the guy that, like, helped push it forward?
There's nothing draconian like that.
Okay.
I have to be careful. I'm not sure how detailed I can get with the deal. It's not like there's anything secretive or anything, but...
Although there is a man standing behind you right now... looking like he's going to smack you over the head.
He's got his hand on a lever that'll dump slime on me.
Yes. There's two levers. There's one that says slime and there's one that says ejector seat. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. I was specifically making something for them. They are not there to take credit away. Like, they're trying to give credit where credit is due and give a fair deal and everything like that.
But it's still their cartoon.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's fair because...
Oh, of course, because you had the power of a studio behind you to get everything off the ground.
They're putting a lot of resources into it.
And distribution, right? I mean, that wasn't something you would have been able to have done.
Couldn't get that voice talent. Couldn't get the amazing, sound team. A friend of mine who did the music for Ladies' Night, they let me call him on to do the music for Oyster Maid.
That's awesome.
My friend Ryan O'Connell, who everything he does, gives me goosebumps. He's fantastic.
Well, that's great. So they let you bring in your own talent. That goes, and it's great for you that you looked out for someone, right? You could have said, "Oh, bring on the best musicians in the land.
Get me,
get chop, bring me the best musicians you have." But you went ahead and brought in somebody that you already respected and knew outside of the industry, or at least outside of that part of the industry.
I think he's since, or maybe even at the time, he's been involved in other shows and things like that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, good on you for that. So you would do it again, is what you're saying? You would
absolutely. I definitely would, and I think I would do it with more intent and maybe a bit more understanding of what goes into it. what really you need to bring to have an idea that's worth investing a lot of money into and like worth people coming back again and again to see. That's really what they're looking for. It's like, how is this show something that generates stories organically?
What was your thing with Oyster Maid that you felt would bring people back?
I don't know that I ever got there with Oyster Maid because I was so like kind of trying to figure out how to make it work, and it wasn't really a seed that I'd thought of from the conception, so it was like always kind of grafting something on there. I was thinking of like childhood relationships that like my playmates as a kid were my cousins, and my cousins.
I thought you were gonna say they were oysters and like
were
sea urchins and bananas.
It was an oyster and a watermelon. And I'm just now making this connection.
Yeah. And I was going to start backing away slowly like, oh, it's all making sense,
get
dude.
out of my house.
Yeah. Oh, your friends were food. And the vegetable show makes sense now.
My friend Chef Boyardee and my friend Mrs. Butterworth.
Oh, wow. That mold that you let grow in the refrigerator all of a sudden has a personality. That's great.
It's moldy.
So you were saying
my cousin Sherilyn was my age and still is. And
thank you for that distinction. I don't know that we would have been able to mathematically work that out otherwise.
And then a couple years younger is my cousin Evan, who's her brother. And we lived really close to each other and we played a lot. So I was thinking of those dynamics, a little bit of like the age dynamic of being a couple years older than one of your friends. And,
sure.
So I was trying to put that into the characters and have this adventure element where Oyster Maid is like trying to be a good person and help out people on the island. But she's like also kind of searching because she doesn't know where she came from. She's the only Oyster Maid. And
she's the only Oyster Maid.
She's the only Oyster Maid.
Okay.
And I liked the idea that she's also like, okay, this is going a little deeper or darker for Nickelodeon, but like,
okay.
So the bottle is adrift at sea, and she feels a little bit adrift, and like she like sleeps on the beach because like her home is her shell, so she's kind of always got that with her. So a lot of times she's like looking up at the stars at night and like wondering what her place is, and that's why
it's like
she's
a sleeping bag.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She's basically, and she has, her friendship with Water Melvin. She has a lot of good relationships on the island with the other creatures there. Everyone really likes her because she's, so sweet and helpful and adventurous. But like part of that is motivated by her trying to figure out who she is. So
the deeper stuff comes from the interpersonal relationships of the characters, not so much the exterior that we're seeing. You know what I mean? Because I almost feel like we all see that coat of paint, and as an audience, we're judging it by the coat of paint. You know what I mean? We're not seeing it and going, oh, look at the character relationships. We're going like, what, an oyster that is a mermaid and a watermelon as her friend? Like, that's all
that's so random.
Yeah, that's all we're seeing. We're not seeing all this other stuff. But that's cool that you look that far into it.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think any of that made it into the pilot. We were just trying so hard just to make a pilot that made sense.
I know, we're getting all existential about this show that has moments full of sight gags and right.
We didn't really, we couldn't get to that. There's so much we had to like check off the list that I think was valid. Like they were trying to push us to make sure we could show the inside of her shell. And show their relationship, show how an adventure would go.
Right.
I think they are right to do that. I think they're right to put a show through the paces right from the beginning. Because not only do you have to prove to the executives that you can make a show, you have to prove to the audience.
So for a successful pilot, before you can get to the nitty-gritty, the meat, right, that makes a show more deeper, you got to kind of pull all the stops in that pilot, right? You got to establish all the beats.
Yes. Right. The beat and the beats that are going to become familiar and expanded upon if it were to become a larger show.
Okay. So that's probably why pilots feel very bullet pointy.
Oh, yeah. I think a big takeaway for me from Oyster Maid was that I made the world so weird that it was just hard to explain how it worked.
Right.
And so instead of being able to rely on just like an establishing shot that shows you a lot.
Sure, like The Simpsons has the wonderful establishing opening credits where you just get
shows you the whole city.
Whole town, yeah.
Right. And I was trying to cling to this idea that the island could be anything we wanted it to be and that it was like sort of shape-shifty and weird because it is like a weird and ethereal and like stuff's coming in and stuff's going out and
sure.
And that's just hard to explain. It's hard to make relatable stories when you do that, when you make something so weird.
Right.
When it's just like an oyster person who lives on the beach and like what does her normal routine look like? You know, these are things that are explained in SpongeBob very quickly. You know, he lives
in a pineapple under the sea.
Right.
It's in like the theme song.
And that's weird, but not too weird, because he's still, like, it's his house, and he's in a neighborhood, and he goes to work, and, like, he goes to boating school. It's like...
That's where the weird stuff happens, because there's an ocean under the ocean.
Right, yeah.
He goes to the beach, right?
He goes to the beach.
Where there's water, but they're underwater.
Yeah, but that's fun, because it's like... It's fun to see how they solve those things and how it relates to our world.
Sure.
You know, so I learned that you kind of, especially on a TV show where you don't have a lot of time to tell stories, or a pilot, you need a world that people can, like, find something relatable to, right?
You need an anchor.
You need an anchor, yes.
To keep the nautical theme going.
Yeah, that island needed, I think it did have an anchor on the underside. Oh, I didn't even get to the underside. Oh. There's like a dark side to the island. Under the water, it flips, and, like, you go around, and it's upside down. This was before Stranger Things. And and like, everything down there is, like, kind of creepy, and there's, like, eels and pirates and, like, all sorts of creepy stuff.
So there's a lot of potential. It just didn't get a chance to get explored.
Right.
Is there a chance that we could revisit her? Do you think Nickelodeon?
If I really got into it, I could pitch something to them again. I could possibly even pitch elsewhere. But I mean, it would have to work out with everyone, including Nickelodeon as a party to that. They're not like the man or anything like I don't think that idea of I don't think that holds. Like,
I mean, I don't know.
I can just, if you know, I can talk to, you know, I have a relationship with people there, and I can just, like, talk to them. And they're people trying to make cool cartoons. Like, it's not like people trying to get a stranglehold on. You know, that's not. I mean, that's not really, like, how it is. Like, From
what you've experienced. Yeah. But I mean, there are stories, though, that people, not with Nickelodeon, I'm just mean
in general in the industry.
Sure, there are industry stories where people get an iron grip on something, and it's like you cannot do anything with it. So what are you working on now? And if someone wants to support Joe Rothenberg, the animator, how do they do that?
So there's an app I've been working on for many years.
Ping Missile Tennis.
Yes, it's like Pong, but with missiles.
It's like Pong, but it's ping.
Yeah, right. Yeah, when I first conceived of this in, like, 2011, when I was, like, you know, 21 years old, I thought that was genius. So
now we all know how young you are.
Yeah, and let's edit that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so that's going to be on the App Store. My other two apps are currently, like, derelict. The games are the hardest thing for me to keep up because they're very fun to make, but they don't make me any money, really. So, you know, when these games get back on the App Store, if you can spend money on them, that's a great way to support me.
Okay.
They're great games. They're a lot of fun, especially, like, Nobody Said It Was Easy is the one that I'd like more people to try.
Which apps are out there right now?
The only one I'm sure of is my sticker app, Grumply. Probably the penguin, which I think I've sent you some, and maybe you didn't know that they were. I sent them to people with no explanation.
No, you have. I didn't know they were.
Angry-looking penguin. Yeah, kind of looks like an owl.
Yes,
I'm going to be releasing a pig version of him soon. The games are going to be out soon as I gradually am able to check the boxes and get them on the App Store again. So keep an eye out for those over the next few months. Animation-wise, you know, right now I'm doing client work and things like that. So if you have a really big business that needs animation, you can support me.
So what's the website they can go to?
JoeRothenberg.com.
Okay.
That's JoeRothenberg.com. No use.
Okay. No use, but just me's.
Hey, I should do that.
You should. JoeRothenberg.com. No use, just me's.
That's a great. I don't know what the marketing message is. You can go on there. The videos page has, like, all of the videos. A lot of the work that I do is funny, so go on there and have a little fun.
And we can see Oyster Maid there.
Yes, Oyster Maid. There's a link to Oyster Maid. There's some of my favorite commercials I've made. I made one for Linz Crafters that I always like to show people, and one for a German fish stick company called Iglo. And then on my site, too, there's Joe's Place, which is my weird attempt at my own little, like, Netflix or something. There you can play Nobody Said It Was Easy for free and see some of my cartoons. And, like, I'm trying to build that up into, like, a place where I just put my most entertainment-oriented stuff.
Okay. Well, that's all great. Well, I mean,
yeah.
And are you involved on social media? Do people?
Yes.
Can they reach you somewhere?
Yes, I'm on Instagram at Joetato Chips, Joetato Chips.
All right, great. Well, dude, Joe, honestly, this has been something we've been looking forward to.
Yes,
I've been looking forward
me
to.
too.
For a long time. I really do wish you all the best with all of your projects, your apps, animation. Of course, I want to have you back as a guest on the show in the future. So
yeah, I am so down.
Cool.
You know I am.
Well, yes.
Yes, and you know this already, but let me just say it on the podcast that I love this podcast.
Oh.
I love what you're doing, and I really want more people to hear this. I feel like the interviews that you're cataloging with like industry greats, not including me, but like the some of these it's people I've never heard from before, and just like there's some real treasures that are being preserved here, and I really am happy that you're doing it.
Well, that is very much appreciated, and those are the goals I set out to achieve is to bring people something that is archival and something they haven't heard before. So I'm happy that thank you. I'm happy that it's reaching people. So thank you for that. Joe, thanks again, and we'll see you online, right?
Yeah, see you online.
All right, bye. That musical selection was from the end credits of Gumwad Island and was composed by Ryan O'Connell. Ryan has since gone on to compose for several live-action shorts. Alrighty, that's it for this episode. Special thanks go out once again to Joe Rothenberg for joining us here on the show. And of course, thank you so much for listening in at home. For more Stay Tuned, head on over to patreon.com/Phil Machi. Subscribing there will get you access to cool rewards like exclusive interview outtakes, my cartoon reviews, and monthly video updates. If you're curious about my own cartoon creations, check out my original comic books at retailsunshine.com. You can even reach out to me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under the handles of both Retail Sunshine and Phil Machi. I also hope you'll consider joining the amazing Stay Tuned community on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/groups/Stay Tuners. I've been Phil Machi, you've been a wonderful audience, and until next time, keep those eyeballs peeled, those ears open, and be sure to stay tuned.